traveling to another train of thought, one not from this century and challenging the status quo. You are now entering the paradigm shift. Well, good Thursday morning, July 12th, 2018. This is the Paradigm Shift, and we are live, as you can quite tell, because I just gave you the date. So if you're listening live, you know we're live. Anyway, welcome, and it is a Thursday edition. Normally we do Mondays, but with my work schedule, on my days off, I can guarantee I'll be here. So you're going to get different days of the week live in the next few months. Work is just crazy. We're so shorthanded. It's just making my scheduling life rather difficult. So today's a Thursday morning. Immediately following this show, we will be having the Wasatch Report with Suzanne Sherman. There will not be a Mark and Suzanne show today. Mark is under the weather. And Mark, if you're listening, get well soon. We're glad you're where you are, getting the help you need to get. And so there won't be a Mark and Suzanne show. There probably won't be one this week. I know that today there's a Wasatch Report. I'm pretty sure tomorrow Suzanne's going to do a Wasatch short report, unless she does a Mark and Suzanne show with a guest host. We'll put this all up on Facebook. You'll find out what is actually scheduled when we do it. So, probably tonight you'll see something marked on Facebook to give you what the schedule for tomorrow is. So anyway, we have two live shows today. We'll be live from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Also joining us at the 11 o'clock show with Suzanne will be Justin from the other side. So there'll be three of us there. I'll just be in the background doing the producer stuff, but whenever something piques my interest, I usually chime in, and Suzanne is kind enough to let me. So we have that. You will find some programming changes. The other side is playing in the morning. I think it plays from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. every Monday through Saturday. Some replays. Justin is uploading some new shows. They also play at, I believe, 9 to 10 p.m. every day. They'll be the same shows, morning and evening. In the evening, they are able to have live shows. So in the future, you may hear some live content in the evenings. Let's see. We're also looking. We have some other people in the background. We're trying to get squared away and get ready. So we're going to have some more new programming, live programming, coming up in the future. And, contact us on Facebook. If you think you want to do a radio show, listen. If I can do a radio show, you can do a radio show. A year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I think it'll be 2 years this December, Daniel and I started our original network, which morphed into the Cerberus Radio Network. If you listen to that first show, December 2 years ago, it is oh my goodness, it's laughable. But to where we're at today, again, we're amateurs, so there's mistakes, there's technical issues, there's always something going on. But where we are today is light years from where we started out. And you know what? We would love to have more live content. The more live content we have, the better it is, because you're not going to hear the same show in loop. Unfortunately, at this time, a lot of shows are in loop. We're always adding the new programmings. Like we have the with Sean Hoffline, the Brush Fires of Freedom. So as he has a new show, it goes in. I take out the oldest, I put in the newest, and so you're always hearing something new from Sean. We're always adding Shift Gold, Friday Gold Wrap Up. We're always adding Mike Bahari when he has new podcasts. So everything keeps changing. The new stuff keeps putting in. So definitely listen on Radio Co, because there's always something on 24 hours a day. So I hope you're enjoying it. But if you want to get on live radio, let us know. Send us a message. We'll talk about it. We'll get you set up, and we'll go from there. Who knows? We might end up with the next, I hate to say it, big name in conservative talk radio. So keep listening. There's always something on. All right, let's get right to it. I only have a short time this morning because I'll, again, as usual, be cutting out a little early so I can get everything set up for the Wasatch Report immediately following this show. Well, 10 a.m. Last week, during some of the shows, I was talking to Mark and Suzanne. I even mentioned this in my show, discussing this in relation to our Declaration of Independence. I didn't read the context, what Thomas Paine was saying before the famous quote. This is Common Sense by Thomas Paine. It's the actual title of this section, because there's different sections of it, is Of the Origin and Design of Government in General, with concise remarks on the English Constitution. So he starts off saying, some writers have so confounded society with government as to leave little or no distinction between them, whereas they are not only different, but have different origins. Society is produced by our wants, and government by our wickedness. The former promotes our happiness positively by uniting our affections, the latter negatively by restraining our vices. The one encourages intercourse, the other creates distinctions. The first is a patron, the last is a punisher. Society in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. In its worst state, an intolerable one. So now you know the context behind what he was saying. There's two different states. There's the state of society, and I'm not talking about the government or a nation, but kind of the state of our being, where we reside. We have society, which he says is a blessing. And then we have government, which he calls a necessary evil, an intolerable necessary evil. Today we have government that is, do we even want to call it a necessary evil at this point? It's just flat out evil. It doesn't represent the people. It doesn't represent our interests. It doesn't protect our liberty. As if you remember me reading that speech from Patrick Henry at the Virginia ratification debates, where he says that the direct under our government ought to be liberty. This government does not protect liberty. It seeks to take our liberty away. It seeks to enslave us. It seeks to keep us under its control. I mean, I'll be honest out there. Is there anyone out there that actually believes that government is our government is good? Our government has our best interests at heart. Our government has the best interests of our friends around the world at heart. I mean, I realize that our government should not be worried about what's going on with other people's governments. That's their problem. Yet we somehow are the police of the world. We have to be the mercenary force around the world. Look at I just had an article here somewhere about this whole thing with Trump and NATO, and you look at the spending on NATO, and it's 90-some% U.S. is the mercenary force for Europe and the other 28 nations in the NATO treaty. And you have these small countries over there like Croatia and stuff. This article was saying that are scared because the United States is talking about cutting back, and they're worried about Russia. And again, here we go with the Russia is the evil empire of the world. So, can we actually say that our government is protecting our liberty today? And quite honestly, when you think about it, it's arms, the media arm of the government. And don't be fooled. The media is an arm of government. It is the propaganda arm of government. It does the bidding of government. The education is definitely an indoctrination propaganda arm of government. Public education is the problem. It is why we have students in these colleges that are going around putting masks on and committing violence. Because that's what they're taught. They're taught all these radical, communist, socialist, Marxist ideas. And that starts in kindergarten. I mean, look at all this stuff with the LGBTQ, RSL, MNOP teaching. They're starting in kindergarten. Government is an evil. It can't be looked at anything other than that. And that's why Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence and said that government derives its powers from the consent of the governed. That's why here we talk about solutions. And one of the solutions is getting this in scale. Harkening back to Livingston's book, Rethinking the American Union, where he talks about scale. How can this government, 535 legislators, 1 executive, and 9 unelected oligarchs, how can they rule 50 states and 320 plus million people? They don't know what's best for you in Suzanne in Utah, me in Pennsylvania, wherever you are. They don't know what's best for you. They don't know what's best for your neighbors. Local government, you guys governing yourself locally, you guys know what's best, what you guys need. And federalism is, if you guys want to be stupid and have socialized medicine, you guys figure out how to pay for it. The rest of us shouldn't have to pay for it. That's the whole genius of federalism. That's this whole, we were talking about the other day. I'm not sure which one it was, but we were applying the whole marijuana thing. Oh, we were talking the other day on the Mark and Suzanne show, abortion. Somehow, the states have figured out that they can nullify federal law when it comes to marijuana. They can defy what the federal government wants, yet when it comes to abortion, oh, we got the law of the land, the law of the land. The oligarchs have spoken. Suzanne and I were talking about something, and she'll bring up the story when she on her show. I'll let her bring that up, but we were talking about it, and I thought, well, I'll just lead off with this. This is a story, it goes back to actually 2016, but it's a new story. It's July 8, 2018, and it's by Glenn Greenwald. It's called MSC Does Not Only Merely Permit Fabrications Against Democrat Party Critics, it encourages and rewards them. So what it was, he's talking about back in 2016, during the election cycle, when Jill Stein was running, and the MSNBC, one of the guys there, started tweeting all kinds of lies about Jill Stein to destroy her in the media, so that Hillary Clinton wouldn't have to deal with Jill Stein taking votes away from her. So that's the background behind that, because I'm not going to read the entire story. Who cares? Honestly, who cares about that stuff? But Glenn Greenwald went to Russia for a conference, and Sorry about that. Making sure that wasn't a call for the show. It is not. All right. He went to Russia to a conference, and what is this guy, the same one that did this to Jill Stein, what is his response and how did he handle it? So I'm just going to start up in the middle of the thought here. Nance did none of that. What he did instead is exactly what he did on MSNBC to Jill Stein in August 2016. In 2 tweets, he outright lied about me on purpose, telling his 420,000 Twitter followers that I am, and quote unquote, an agent of Moscow and quote unquote, deep in the Kremlin pocket. He further lied by stating that I, quote unquote, helped Snowden defect, and that I, quote, reports into my masters in Moscow. So why don't I read that? As Suzanne and I were talking earlier, if you cross this government, and again, like they said, the media is a propaganda arm of this government. Do not be fooled. The mainstream media. I mean, there's alternative media on the internet for now, but as we, who knows? As we here at CRN start to grow, start to get more listeners, start to have an impact on people's thinking, the media arm of the propaganda wing of this government, this Marxist government, it is a Marxist government, will do whatever it can to destroy you. It tried to destroy Jill Stein through their media wing. Glenn Greenwald, he's now lying on Twitter about him, spreading falsehoods. If you are outside the bounds of what government wants, and you are a threat, and this was where Suzanne is going to talk about it later, they'll come up with a confidential informant. Look at all here we go. We'll broaden this out even further. Look at all these so-called terrorist attacks that don't happen because the FBI stopped them before they did it. What is the common factor in every one of those? The FBI instigated it, and they had a confidential informant that helped them stop it. So they created the situation. They got the person to give them evidence against the person they wanted to get, and they got the person they got. Is that a power we really... First off, it's an unconstitutional power, but is that a power we really want government to have? That they fabricate the crisis, they fabricate the evidence, and then they spring the trap and put you in jail. Government is an evil. It might be a necessary evil, but at the size and the scope of what we have today, we have an NSA that collects every bit of metadata that you produce. So every time I send a message to Suzanne, or even right now, everything that's coming through this right now, they're collecting every bit of it. I can sit there with this little computer next to me over here, my media computer, and I edit things. I cut out different things to get the things to length so they fit into the hour that we have on Radio Co. that's set aside for specific shows. So if I have this show today and it were 1 hour and 5 seconds long, I would need to cut 5 seconds out of that show. Or if it was 1 hour and 25 seconds long, I'd have to get rid of 25 seconds of that show just to get it inside that hour so it fits. But beyond that, I can edit out words. I can spread that out, see the waveform, and I can actually take out words. I could change a sentence to say something else even after I recorded it. And then I could make it sound like I said anything in the world. I made a threat. if I can do that with my limited skills, what can government do with all that data that they're saving on you? I mean, first off, the Bill of Rights and requiring them to get a warrant to collect information on you, that actually applies to the federal government. So all this metadata they're storing away without a warrant, without even probable cause. Suzanne and I have done nothing, or the person she's going to talk about, his only crime was being on the radar. So we have a government that can do whatever they want to us. They use the media to destroy people's lives. They can fabricate events to make you a criminal, to put you in prison. Is this liberty? Is this freedom? No. Going back to what Patrick Henry said, the direct end of our government ought to be liberty. That's why we talk about the Declaration of Independence. That's why I talk about the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions, because those are principles that we need to start applying today. Those are 18th century ideas for 21st century thinkers. Our old motto. It still holds true. Those principles don't change just because, now we have cell phones and we have cars and airplanes and all that. Do our natural rights change because we have new things? I mean, but come on, let's be honest. Our natural right to free association, our natural right to self-determination, our natural right to self-preservation. Again, I made this statement on a post. Some big conservative on Sirius was talking about a movie on the Constitution and how we have all these, we need to learn how to protect our civil liberties. Civil liberties? Those are gifts from government. This is why we're in the problem we have today, because civil liberties, civil rights. We demand our Second Amendment right. We demand our First Amendment right. We demand our Fourth Amendment right, Fifth Amendment right. Give us our right. Give us our right. That's why we're in the problem we are today, because people keep demanding government give them their right. No! Now you're getting a privilege. The second you buy into this whole notion that it's a right that they have to give me, you have given up the natural right. Now you have a civil right. You have civil liberties. And we have so-called conservatives pushing for these civil liberties. Stop. Stop asking for a right from government. You have it inherently. It's in you. You owned it before there was a Constitution. You will own it if the Constitution ended today. You would still have that right. That's why we're doing this, because we have to change people's thinking on this. We have to end this idea that we get something from government. Government gives us nothing. Government takes. I was talking the other day. I think it was when I was on with Mark while he was doing the Mark and Suzanne show. Suzanne had a prior engagement. So I was talking about, I got my yearly extortion demand from government. And this isn't just, I'm not just talking on the federal level. When we talk about government, we're talking about all layers of government. It is too intrusive and too abusive and needs to be cut way back. So I got my yearly extortion demand that's levied against my house that I supposedly own. I have no mortgage. I supposedly own this. The deed is free and clear. It's mine. Really? Could have fooled me, because if I don't pay them their yearly extortion demand, what's going to happen? There's going to be guys with guns that show up to escort me out of here or carry me out of here in a bag. That's government. That's what we want. That's good. That's great. Let's make America great. Let's have more taxes. Let's have more spying on us. Let's have more metadata taken. Let's have more wars. Let's have... come on. We need to get a proper idea of what government is. That's why I read Thomas Paine to you. That's why I read Patrick Henry to you. That's why I read to you before. I read Governor Clinton in one of those, the Anti-Federalist. And I'm going to say that was Cato. I can't remember which one it was now. That's why I go back and read these guys. Not because it's easy to read, or sometimes it's not even easy to understand. Try to read John Taylor Caroline. The carriage tax. I can't think of what the pamphlet's called, but it was on the carriage tax. Look it up. Look it up. John Taylor Caroline on the carriage tax. He's not easy to read. You know why? Because he was smart. He was intelligent. And I can't remember. I'm going to attribute it to somebody. And I'm not entirely sure if it was him or if it was a different person. No, I won't attribute it to anyone. Because, there was someone, it's either one or two people, once said that the brains of the Virginia dynasty was John Taylor of Caroline. A very, very, very smart man. But how many of you out there have ever heard of John Taylor of Caroline? Probably just about none of you. I hadn't before I started listening to a good friend of ours, Mike Church. I had never heard of John Taylor. I really never had much interest in Patrick Henry. Honestly, out there, how many of you knew anything about Patrick Henry other than give me liberty or give me death? I'd heard this quote of John Paine's all the way back when I was in school. But I would almost wager that quote is never even discussed in history, American history anymore. I'll have to ask Justin when he's on with Suzanne, because he's a teacher. I'd wager a bet that 99% of the schools in this union never teach that quote, that government is a necessary evil and at times an intolerable one. And we're living under the intolerable evil. That's why, again, read the Declaration of Independence. Who has the power over government? Right now, we're allowing government. We're allowing 9 politically connected judges in black dresses to rule us, and we kowtow to them and say, oh, it's the law of the land. Law of the land. Got to obey them. Go to Article 3 and show me where the enforcement mechanism is for the Supreme Court. And I'll tell you what, call in 717-467-1736. Read me the enforcement mechanism in the Constitution for the Supreme Court. It's not there. Don't waste your time. Again, like I said the other day, we keep hearing in school that we have 3 co-equal branches. And if you go and read your Constitution again, all the power is vested in the legislative branch. The president has a power to veto. They can even override it. So the legislature can ignore them. They get enough votes, they override it. So he has a little power. They have all the power. Who can set what the Supreme Court, what cases the Supreme Court can hear? The legislative branch. We don't have co-equal branches. We have set up that we have a legislature, two houses that were supposed to represent the people and the states. The Senate was not supposed to be more of the same crap we get out of the House. They were supposed to represent the interests of the state. The legislature put the people in there to represent the people collectively of the state, the interests of the state. They were supposed to be more deliberative. We don't have that. But we don't have equal branches. I mean, really, read what the president can do. He can appoint cabinet posts. He can make treaties. But again, even that is subject to the legislature. So what is it? It has to be by the advice and consent. So he was given some authority, but it's limited by the legislature. The court is severely limited by, quite honestly, it calls for one Chief Justice. That's all that's required in the Supreme Court. One Chief Justice. And a really smart guy I know said that since you, and he was on Suzanne's show the other day, case in point. I'll say his name. I'm 99.99% sure that I know, I'm pretty sure I heard him say this. Because it has the requirement for one Chief Justice, that implies that you have to have a justice under the Chief Justice. So really, technically, it requires two justices. That's it. And as far as all these appellate courts, all these federal courts, we don't have it. None of them are required. Not one. Today, the Congress could abolish every federal court, save the Supreme Court, and two justices, and be within the realm of the constitutional requirements. Do you think that would put a limit on the judicial activism if we got rid of all of those courts? Because quite honestly, they're unnecessary. The vast majority of the cases that they're hearing are state court cases that because they're going to lose in the state, they go to the federal. And so what do we get? We end up with states like California overwhelmingly passing a marriage amendment to their constitution where it's a one man, one woman. That's a marriage. And what do? They go right to a federal court, and what happens? It's struck down. And and honestly, what do you expect from the state of California? You expect nothing more than what they did. They cave and say, oh, it's the law of the land. Law of the land. So, Fee had an article on July 6th. The Supreme Court has destroyed the principle of the consent of the government, quote unquote. As Americans celebrate the 242nd anniversary of its secession from Great Britain, and that's what we did, we seceded because it's our right to self-determination, free association, which doesn't go away. It's natural. It's in us. So if California wants to secede, is it legal? Doesn't matter. It's a natural right. This whole idea. Let's go there just a second. I had no intention of going here. This whole question, is secession legal? That's a ludicrous question. It does not matter. That is a cop-out. That is government indoctrination. That is the brainwashing, the indoctrination of the public schools. It was settled by the Civil War. That's ridiculous. Because Lincoln was able to compel the southern states back into a voluntary union, doesn't change the fact that you have a natural right. Government can't take that away from you. It is inherent in you. It's an unalienable right, as Jefferson called it. So this whole idea, if it doesn't matter. It does not matter if a court says it's illegal. That is unimportant. It doesn't matter. Ignore it. You have a natural right. If a court says you can't have firearms, is that law? Or is your right to self-preservation a natural right? If the government says you can't pray in public, is that law? It's illegal now because they said so. Is that law? No, you ignore it. Why? Because you have a natural right to the free expression of your own religion. So we seceded from Great Britain. References to the Declaration of Independence ratified on July 4, 1776 were many. But while the left reminded us all men are created equal, and the right reminded us that all inalienable rights come from our Creator, far too little attention was paid to another phrase in Jefferson's famous preamble, deriving their just powers from the consent of the government. Judging from the way most Americans talk, almost no one remembers how that consent is supposedly obtained. Hint, it isn't from voting, but that's what most Americans seem to believe. According to this narrative, representatives are elected democratically, and by casting one's vote, one consents to whether legislation the representatives who win the election choose to pass or whatever executive actions the elected president chooses to take. In the aftermath of Obamacare's passage, surrogates for President Obama often justified that the new federal endeavor with this quip, that's why we have elections. Conservatives employ the same reasoning when their candidate wins. And I said this in when I was discussing this whole notion of the fair and equal clause or the Commerce Clause with somebody related to Second Amendment rights, quote unquote. For those of you who are listening, you couldn't see me do the air quotes. Second Amendment, quote unquote, rights. That raises the question: why did the framers bother with sections 8, 9, and 10 in Article 1? Sections 2, 3, and 4 in Article 2? Or sections 2, 3 in Article 3? Why did they include Article 5 at all? I'm going to stop right there because you got to wrap your head around that very statement. So you have people who say the fair and the full faith and credit clause or the Commerce Clause. They say that gives the government the power to do whatever. It's expansive. They can do whatever they want. Fully forgetting that all the limits that were placed in those sections right there. If indeed the point of the full faith and credit clause and the Commerce Clause is to give unlimited power to the federal government, then those sections, just cross them out. They don't matter. Why he asked correctly, why did they even bother? Why have them in there? I mean, they were just useless because those two clauses right there, when they come to those two clauses, that gives carte blanche to do whatever you want. Whatever. Have at it. Have fun. So we can have Obamacare. We can have Social Security. We can have Medicare, Medicaid. We can have whatever you want. We can let's go here. We can have farm subsidies. We can have, the list is endless of all the things they do today that are unconstitutional. FBI, BTAF, BLM, all these agencies, all these departments that are on Department of Education. Where, okay, well, because full faith and credit and the Commerce Clause, they can do them. But So then why even have all those clauses that set the limits on government? They're useless. Unless you properly apply those clauses in relation to the delegated authority. So, and we have Article 1, Section 8, 9, and 10. It's limiting. It only gives certain powers, very limited enumerated powers. Now, again, Suzanne and I have talked numerous times that the Constitution is a flawed and failed document. Look where we're living. Come on. If the Constitution is so star-spangled, awesome, so great, why are we living where we're living today? Why do we have all this tyranny we live under today? Why do we have a federal government that does what it does? Explain it to me. How can it possibly be? Because it's not limiting. Unlike the Articles of Confederation that they got rid of, which they all complained about, it was too weak. And then you have Patrick Henry in his speech saying, well, if it was so awful, how did it get us through a war with the greatest empire in the world? Successfully beat them. If it's such an awful thing. We can discuss the Articles of Confederation another time. And I've said numerous times that had we stayed under the Articles of Confederation, perhaps today we'd be in a lot better place than we are. So anyway, back to what we're just talking about with these, the full faith and credit and the Commerce Clause. If you applied them by the limited authority, and this is what I was trying to explain to this guy. He was saying that they, like even national reciprocity, they can do that because full faith and credit. And I said, I'll go back to my original statement. Show me in Article 1, Section 8, where firearms are given to the federal government as something they can legislate on or regulate. I said to him, listen, it's not there. You're not going to find the authority to regulate firearms. And on top of that, you're going to find an absolute restriction and an absolute prohibition to the federal government having any authority over firearms in the Second Amendment. Because that's what it is. It's a restriction on the federal government. It is not a right. You do not have a Second Amendment right. You do have a Second Amendment that absolutely, completely forbids the federal government from any legislative power over your national right in firearms. Which is better? Which would you rather have? A Second Amendment? Give me my Second Amendment right. That gives them the authority now because you're demanding a civil right, something that they can regulate and they can take away. Or an absolute restriction on the federal government. Which is better? Which serves you better? Because if an absolute restriction means they have no authority whatsoever to regulate it. Period. So you have to look at the full faith and credit clause, the Commerce Clause, as limited by what they're allowed to do. This whole idea that it's just carte blanche to do whatever they want is ridiculous. So we're kind of have to soon start wrapping this up. It's about quarter of. Let me just go on, and I'm going to finish this paragraph in this FEE article. And again, go to FEE, Foundation for Economic Education. This is from Friday, July 6, 2018, and it's by Tom Mullen. Read the entire article. It is well worth reading. And I believe if you look, see me, I got the cough. I believe if you look, you're going to find that Tom Mullen, I believe, has an article on immigration. And I believe it's, does the federal government have a power over immigration or something along that line? And Suzanne wrote a great article. You can go to the 10th Amendment Center and find her article there on immigration. Read Tom Mullen's article on immigration. We can discuss that another day. I have the article. I just didn't have time to get it. I really didn't have time to get it. I have a Mises article on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is much too powerful by Ryan McCracken. Go to Mises Institute and look up "The Supreme Court is Much Too Powerful." It's another good, really, really good article on the Supreme Court and where we are today, and the tyranny we live under, the judicial tyranny we live under. So look up those articles. I barely touched the surface on them. I got 2 paragraphs into Tom Mullen's article. So let's just finish up this thought. I'm going to go back to the beginning of this. That raises the question: why did the framers bother with sections 8, 9, and 10 in Article 1, sections 2, 3, and 4 in Article 2, or sections 2 and 3 in Article 3? Why did they include Article 5 at all? The answer is that the aforementioned sections define the list of powers the people were consenting to. Important thought there. The powers the people were consenting to. All others were being reserved to the states or to the people, while Article 5 was provided as the one and only means for the people to consent to any new powers. Put another way, any power exercised by the federal government that is not among the delegated in the Constitution is power exercised without the consent of the governed. See, I'm telling you, folks, read this article. That is it in a nutshell. So Obamacare is not in there. It is done without our consent. Now, so there's some people out there who do. That's why there's Article 5. If you think that's what we need, then go do an Article 5. Get the prerequisite number of states to agree to it, get the prerequisite number of states to ratify it, and then it becomes part of the Constitution. But the way it's done now, who did it? Well, they passed the law, but who made sure that it's the law of the land? 9 politically connected judges in black dresses said it's the law. All right. Please read those articles. Go to Mises, find that article. Go to FEE and find that article. They're well worth the read. All right. Wow. That hour went fast. I had a break all set up to play, but well, I'm not going to play it. So there. The show's winding up in about 10 minutes, a little over 10 minutes from now. The Wasatch Report will be on. Again, as I said earlier, the Mark and Suzanne show is not on today. Mark is under the weather. We're praying for you, Mark. Hope you feel better quickly. Hope everything goes well. And we hope to hear you back soon. We miss you. Thank you for listening to The Paradigm Shift. In just about 11 and a half minutes, the Wasatch Report will be on. I will close this out. Let me start the music. Thank you for listening today. Thank you for supporting our network. If you like what you hear, share the shows. And we are on SoundCloud. Share SoundCloud. Go and subscribe to our channel on SoundCloud. You know what? You can download the shows for free. We don't charge anything. Go listen to the shows. If you've missed shows, listen to them. They're there. If you like what you hear, download it and share it with your friends. Turn them on to us. Share us. Please, that's all we're going to grow. If you don't do it, we don't advertise. We don't pay for advertising. Thank you for listening. This is the Service Radio Network, defending liberty from the flames of tyranny.